Hey, welcome everybody. This is a new episode of The Whistle featuring the host Reco Jackson. And today I'm having a show on HIV and AIDS awareness almost 40 years later. And we're talking about how far we've come, some of the misconceptions that are still around, and some of the new information that we should know about and we need to receive in our communities. And today I have two specialists that can tell you more about it. And I'm going to tell you the reason why I had this show. Me and Raheem, we had a conversation one day, and me being the type of person that I am, I wanted to share some information with them that I heard was true once upon a time. And it was about how you can get contract AIDS and contract HIV. And the information that I gave him was completely wrong. I went back and looked it up after I told him about it. I said, I might need to research this and find out. So I looked it up and I still didn't get anything concrete. So I made a phone call to the people that knew better than I knew. And I found out I was spreading the wrong information. And that's, a lot of what's been going on. And almost 40 years later, we're going through this situation of the wrong information about a disease and an epidemic that we should be more aware of. So today I decided to bring the specialists to you that can give you better information than I can. So I'm not going to tell you what their titles are. I'm going to tell you their name. This is Melissa Parker and Tony Walker. I want to welcome you. And after I welcome you, you can tell everybody your position so they can know that you got credibility in what we're talking about. So this is Melissa Parker and Tony Walker. How y'all doing today?
Good, man. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Oh, I can't complain. Glad to have y'all here today.
Thank you for inviting us.
So I feel like it was urgent to have this conversation. I named the show The Whistle. It might sound a little funny to you. Why did he call it The Whistle? But most people know that whenever you hear somebody blow a whistle, they trying to get your attention. A referee or somebody trying to get you to stop and pay attention to what they need you to do or something that you need to be recognizing. And so I decided to name the show The Whistle because this is some things that we need to talk about. I mean, after all this time, I'm still spreading the wrong information, and I consider myself pretty much the type that likes to be informed. And so, if I'm spreading the wrong information, I need to get with the people that can give out the right information. And so the floor is yours. And first question I want to ask, either one of you could take it. What's some of the biggest misconceptions right now about the spread of HIV/AIDS or the myths that still exist that just completely aren't true?
Melissa, you want to go first? You want me to go?
It doesn't matter. Well, I mean, I can tell you one thing that we kind of hear all the time is that.
Well, y'all got to give your title and your credentials.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Melissa Parker with Health Services Center located in Anniston, Alabama. I am the Director of Prevention and Education for Health Services Center. I've been here for 12 years. And I've tried to just make sure that I learn and absorb and do as much as I can. But I think one of the things that we still see and hear, strangely, is that this is still, a gay man's issue. And it's not. I mean, we still have to tell people that, yes, you can get this by using needles. You can get this in heterosexual relationships. Like, this is not, HIV doesn't discriminate. And that's still a misconception.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, that was one of the lies that I told. I'm going to say it was a lie because the way it got back to me, I thought it was the truth, but now I find out it's a complete lie. And the lie that I told was that I found out that men couldn't get HIV from women. They couldn't contract it. And so I went around for actually like 5 years, and I only heard this maybe 8 years ago. Because before then, I thought that I assumed that a man could get it from a woman. So when I heard it from these people, these were people that were affiliated in the industry that, that were more informed than me. And so I took it that they were more of the authority on it, and I went and repeated it, even though I knew better than before. Right. I said, well, okay, a man can't contract HIV from a woman. Whoa, well, I need to let people know, this has been a misconception. But then, I found out otherwise. And I feel bad about, putting the wrong information out there, because I know it's plenty of others that's probably believing that if they ever heard that.
Yeah, there are a lot of different like rumors and misconceptions about HIV. Before I get started, my name is Tony Kristen Walker. I'm the director of prevention and community partnerships at AIDS Alabama in Birmingham. I've been doing this work for about 7 years, and I'm passionate about the work because not only do I do work to prevent HIV, but I've also been living with HIV for over 20 years. So like I've heard just about everything, from people like, well, you don't look like you got HIV, or you don't like you got, you can't tell. So one of the conceptions that people still think that they can tell by looking at someone, what their sero status or what their HIV status is. You absolutely cannot do that. So, you got to deal with that. There are a lot of misconceptions when it comes to, we do testing at Huffman High School every year. We didn't do it this year. But when I first started working in the field, the young boys were like trying to tell us like a way that their uncles, because I never heard this before, but their uncles could tell them if a girl had an STI. And one of the guys said that if you get some earwax and put some vinegar on it and insert it into the girl, if it burns it, that means she's got something. Like, yeah, she got vinegar and earwax in her vagina. So our fathers and uncles are like giving us this information and like it's okay, and it's just not. But no, HIV doesn't discriminate. It's not a gay disease anymore. Anybody can be affected by it.
Man, you like to threw me on wet with that one right there, man. That was good.
I'm telling you, I was like, what?
I used to work at a detention facility. I was in a former life. I was a middle school and high school teacher, but I worked in a youth detention facility, and every kid that came through there had the exact same. Oh, well, this is how you can tell. We're good. We're good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No, you're not good.
Yep, I heard that one when I was young too about the earwax. I'm like, man,
I have never heard that. I'm 53 years old. I have never heard that.
Yeah, I heard that mess, man. I wouldn't believe in it, but it just, it was actually said. And now when I lived in Jacksonville, Florida, I remember it was a woman in the apartments that I lived in. She had it, and it was a lot of men still messing with this woman. I mean, and she didn't mind messing with them, but I mean, she was like living a regular lifestyle, different men coming in and out, not be looking like, wait a minute, if everybody knows this, what are they doing? So when I came back to Alabama and I received that false information, I was thinking maybe they heard the same thing. The reason why they felt like it was no problem, because I never could understand why they, the men kept, they didn't have no problem going for it. And I was like, man, that's
so let's back up to like misconceptions. So people who are HIV positive, even if they aren't taking their medications, can have sex with other people without pass on. Condoms still work. And that's the thing that people don't understand. So, we would have to assume that one, the lady is not disclosing her status, but if you knew, then I'm sure the guys who were with her knew, so that's not a problem. The other thing that you have to assume is the fact that either they were using condoms. How long ago was this, Reco?
This was maybe 10 years ago, maybe 10 or 11 years ago.
Okay, the other thing that you can reasonably assume is women are better at taking care of their health than men are. Like, we go to the doctor with something about to fall off, like literally, your arm hanging out. I think it's time for me to go to the doctor. Like, no, bro, you should went when you first got that cut. Now you got gangrene. So like women are better at protecting themselves than men are. So like if she's a woman who has HIV, more than likely she's going to be in care unless she has some type of substance abuse or mental illness issue. So this is new science that we've only found out to be true science in the last 7 to 8 years. But when people are HIV positive, even before we knew the moniker of U equals U, or undetectable means untransmittable, people who were taking their medications, we were still undetectable. We just didn't have a word for it. So when you get HIV, it increases your your viral load for HIV and it lowers your CD4 count. Once you start taking your medications, it decreases your viral load to a point where you can't even transmit it, even if you're having unprotected sex. And people still don't know that. So you'll see people. I mean, my husband and I, for instance, my husband's negative. We've been together for 12 years. And and we haven't always used condom, and he hadn't always been on PrEP. So like, if you take your medications, you really pose no risk for people. So like, when people talk about these HIV criminalization laws about putting people in jail because they didn't tell you that they had HIV, well, you could have used the condom. You could have told them to use the condom. You chose not to. Why is that their responsibility? We have to be in charge of our own sexual health.
That's
and a
right.
lot of times we put too much emphasis on someone else protecting us instead of us protecting ourselves.
Right.
Yes. The only person that can protect you is you. That's what I tell people all the time.
And marriage does not protect you either.
Do what?
Marriage does not protect
you. Oh, no, it does. Lord, no. No, it does not. The only person that can protect you is you. I tell people that all the time, and I tell females, you can carry condoms. There is no shame in that. Please, if there's any question, it doesn't have to be about HIV. If there's any trust issues, if there's any question there, protect yourself. And there are many ways to do that. And we couldn't say that 12 years ago when I walked into this field. We couldn't say that for sure and know that the science behind it proved it. But now we can. So we have a lot of different angles that we can go at as far as prevention goes. We can talk about U equals U. We can talk about pre-exposure prophylaxis, which is PrEP, the 1 pill a day prevention pill medication that can be taken by somebody that is HIV negative. We can talk about condom use. We can talk about other barriers, other things that are starting to make their way onto the scene when it comes to prevention. We have so many more tools in our toolbox than we had 10 years ago. Thankfully, we've come a long way.
Well, tell me, is the accountability amongst individuals, as far as the rate of infection, is this getting better, or is it still on the same rate of infection? Is it about the same? Because I know about the same 11, 12 years ago, I was hearing that Black women were the fastest rate of infection, and it was like increasing every year. And I'm wondering, is it still the same? Is it any change coming in that ratio?
We kind of go in cycles, and I think Tony can probably, here's the thing. Sometimes the prevention follows the money, the funding, and how it comes. And the funding, is usually about 5 years behind the trend, because you'll get funded for a 3 to 5 year grant. And both of the organizations that I work for and that Tony works for are grant funded. So we'll get funded to work on a project that's focused on Black females, or we'll get, and then 3 to 5 years later, we'll get funded to work on a project that is focused on Black young men that have sex with other men, or it's the funding is 3 to 5 years behind, so it really kind of swings back and forth in cycles. There's a lot of stuff that's looking at injection drug use from time to time. It's just one of these things where our focus, unfortunately, chases the money.
Right.
And I mean, we can't do the work without funding. It's really hard to do the work without funding. We can try, but you're not going to get very many people on board that are going to want to do all the work and not at least get some sort of compensation.
Right.
Yeah,
for anybody that's go ahead.
I was going to say, the other thing about that is the fact that, when you're looking at funding sources for HIV prevention work, it seems like our funders are only like single focus. Like, we only want to focus on Black women. But if you only focus on Black women, then you got Black men and Latinx people who are not going to be taken care of. If you only focus on Latinx, then you got Black men, Black women, and probably trans people not taken care of. And that's the problem with whether we talked about HIV for years. We talked about HIV as a disease that only affects one group of people, when it affects everyone. So, like, when you see a commercial about HIV medications, or even PrEP, which is pre-exposure prophylaxis that prevents HIV, you shouldn't just see a commercial that just shows gay people, trans people, or Black people. You should see a commercial that shows people, because we're all at risk for HIV, whether we know it or not. And that was one of the things, and I guess we can talk about this when we talk about prevention. That's one of my big pet peeves, is that people really think that, well, I ain't got to worry about that. Well, why not?
Right.
Like, why not?
Right. For anybody that's tuning in or want to call in, the telephone number is 678-381-1973. That's 678-381-1973. if you would like to call in and ask some questions or get any information that you might want to get cleared up, that you have curiosities or just wanted some knowledge about. I'm glad that both of y'all went there, because I was going to make that point. I know, to me, I wonder why it would make such a big difference to categorize who's getting it when pretty much the treatment still needs to be the same. And then I think about the fact that the women were having that higher ratio. And Tony, you made the point. When it comes to us men, especially black men, man, we got to be about passed out and out of blood before somebody say, go ahead and call the ambulance, we'll go. So I know it's about number one, you got men on the down low, so you can't count them as heterosexual because they lying about being heterosexual. Then you got men that's not even going. So, I mean, what's the use of having the categories when really and truly everybody still needs to get treated as a whole for the epidemic?
So the categories are important because you need to know which populations are most affected. And I think the problem with that is we take most affected and we think it means only affected. So, we talk about men who have sex with men as being the people who are most affected, but we're not the only people affected. And again, it goes to that whole thing about dealing stuff with blinders on. I'm gonna put caution back on one other thing. Like we talked about down low men to we're dead in the face. I hate J.L. King for even coming up with that particular moniker, because the misconception is that men who are bisexual or maybe gay and hiding it through a marriage, because there are a bunch of them, that they're the ones who are infecting these women. When research has shown that men who infect women are usually straight and are having sex with sex workers who do IV drugs. But, I tell people all the time, it's like we have to find a villain. We have to create a villain for our story. And the villain for the HIV story has been the quote unquote down low man. Yeah, and it's interesting because a lot of that stuff we do has like biblical context to it, because a mansion and all that's been misinterpreted, but that's a whole nother subject for a whole nother day. The thing that bothers me most about it is it gives people a false sense of security. Well, if I'm not a down low man or I'm not gay, then I don't need to worry about it. You damn sure got to worry about it just because you have sex. So it's like one of those things where we vilify people. And to give you another example, the coronavirus, we are all in COVID-19. Like literally, I'm working at home at my table. And because we don't have a biblical context for someone who is a carrier of COVID, for them to be a villain, we haven't been able to vilify anybody about COVID. But COVID is way more contagious than HIV. And I was looking at some numbers. I think COVID may have killed more people globally than HIV at this point. Don't quote me on that, but it's a lot. And so we don't have a villain for this. Right. But when it comes to sexual diseases, we want to have a villain, and we want to vilify the other person instead of admitting that we didn't take care of our own stuff.
Right.
Well, and because we as a nation, have made sex dirty for whatever reason. I mean, we're all here because of sex. I mean, we would not exist on this earth. And it's funny, we make the joke around here that, human beings are the ultimate STI or whatever, STD. That's right. And because we would none of us would exist if it weren't for sex. So why have we vilified sex itself so much? Why have we made it so dirty? I don't know. What we should be doing is trying to make sure people live their lives and do it as safe as possible. And if they don't want to be safe, I mean, sometimes that's something that we can't force people to do. We can't force people into treatment. We can't force people to go to the doctor. What we can do is equip them with knowledge and the tools to make the best decisions for their life in that moment. That's all we can do. And that's it. That goes for any one of us sitting here on this panel. There goes for anybody that we deal with on a daily basis. All we can do is educate people and hope that they make the best decisions for themselves. And that's where HIV education in the community is so important, is getting the information out there and letting people know the truth and then make their decisions. And then, give them places to call, places to go to get tested, to get information, to get on medication that, preventive medication, which is PrEP, to get safer sex supplies, anything that they need to keep themselves safe. That's what we're here to do.
Right. See, I agree, man. I know I bring that conversation out a lot up in just any conversation that I have. I hate classifications and categories, because sometimes people use categories, and the simple-minded person will take the responsibilities from other people that could be potentially affected. Is it like, oh, okay, well, like with COVID, they switched around so many times who were most susceptible. In 1 minute, Black people weren't susceptible, then we were the most susceptible. 1 minute it was young people that wasn't susceptible, then they started. I mean, it's like, man, why do y'all even want to put categories on it when really and truly it doesn't discriminate? It doesn't. It's a matter of you taking care of yourself and taking precautions.
The news is just as big of a problem as it is a help. And I'm not talking about conservative news. I'm not talking about liberal media. I'm just talking about the news in general, because their job is to find a headline to draw you in. And I've seen a lot of people. I even got into an argument with this guy on Facebook one day about something. And he posted an article to prove his point. Well, if you only read the headline of the article, it proved his point. When you read the article, it proved my point. So like, we don't have the attention span of the bandwidth to go further than the headline most of the time. So it's very important that we are very, very careful about that. So you're exactly right when it comes to that.
Yep. Yeah, we're a society of convenience. Quick, we want everything very quick, and we want it to be as convenient as possible. So the headlines is good enough for us to automatically know exactly what everything says, and you can fool people good with that. Very well.
Exactly right. Absolutely.
Now I know Tony has his work covers more of the southeast east region, and
I'm like
Melissa,
all over the state.
all over the state. And Melissa, you handle more local areas, right?
Yes, the agency I worked with covers 14 counties in East Alabama. So it's about a 9,000 square mile radius. But then Tony's organization kind of covers and does and helps out, and whatever they're funded to do, whatever he feels like needs to be done, all over the state. Mm-hmm. But we work well together. Well, that's one thing I can say about Alabama is we've always had a really good group of ASOs, and what that means is aid service organizations that have worked together to make sure that we get done what we need to get done across the state. But that doesn't mean that we don't have to raise hell every once in a while, or get up and scream and stomp and demand. But it's a good thing. We all have respect for each other in that we will listen to each other and we work for the betterment of the state, and hopefully that kind of spills over into the southeast region. And then the country, yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, what are the biggest roadblocks? Is it the cooperation of the citizens, the community, or is it the government funding? I mean, what are the biggest roadblocks between both of your organizations?
Funding.
Let me say that. Well, yeah, funding is a problem. But even before you get to the funding part of it, you have to get to, like, for me, stigma, which is like the way that people think about HIV, is the absolute worst problem that we face. Yeah, and the reason why I say that, it affects every part of the work that we do. It affects people being tested. So let's talk about that for a second. So I don't want to go get tested, because if I go get tested, they're going to think I'm one of them sisters who got HIV. Or if I go get tested, then people are going to think I've done some things that I should have been ashamed of. So, like, that's how stigma affects just the prevention aspect of it.
Absolutely.
When you have people who are positive, well, they don't want to go to get treatment because they don't want to go down to that place because everybody going to think they got the AIDS. It's like the bane of my existence, which is one of the reasons why I'm very open about my HIV status. Because I'm not ashamed of having HIV. I mean, as the church folks say, but God, it could have been you. But HIV is no longer a death sentence. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. So, like, the first thing we have to do is change the way people think about HIV. Because honestly, we have everything right now in our power to end HIV as an epidemic and as a disease, but stigma alone prevents us from doing that. We got the funding. We can go get people tested. We can't get people tested. In an alternate universe, let's just say we were able to test everybody in the United States. You're gonna have one or two results. You're either gonna be positive or you're gonna be negative. For people who are positive, we put you on medications. You take your medication. You can no longer pass the virus. So what happens in the generation? It becomes polio. For people who are negative, you can make a couple of choices that are lifestyle choices. You can choose not to have sex, which nobody's going to do. You can choose to wear condoms, which very few people do. Or you can choose to get on PrEP, which is pre-exposure prophylaxis. It's a once-a-day pill that prevents HIV. But not enough people are even doing that. So what we're doing is we're letting shame and stigma stop us from protecting ourselves. And one of my favorite poets, Audre Lorde, said that your silence won't protect you.
Right.
So you think you just being quiet about it's going to protect you? It does not. It absolutely does not.
Right.
I think the second step to, the stigma is huge. And then normalizing testing is a big thing that we work so hard to do. And it really, like the places that we've seen the best response are on college campuses or in communities where there are a lot of younger kids, teenagers, high school kids that are, moving up into their early 20s. Normalize testing. Tell like we offer free testing.
Get rid of the consent issue.
Yes.
Because if you go to your doctor and you go for your annual checkup and you tell him that you want to do blood work, they will test you for everything but HIV, because there is a law or regulation on our books that says that in order for someone to have an HIV test, they have to explicitly consent to having that test done. So you go to the doctor thinking they're giving you an HIV test, unless you actually sign for it, they're not going to do it. So let me tell you how that affects the work that we do. In the last 3 years, I've encountered 3 men. Melissa helped me with the last one, which was just a mess. But these 3 men who had been sick for about a year because they were married or were straight presenting, no one assumed that they had the HIV or the AIDS, because these are straight looking men. 2 of them were actually white men, and nobody thinks about straight white men and HIV at all. So they've been sick, going to the hospital for about a year. They've been tested for cancer, lupus, blood pressure, you name it, they tested for it. And each of these men ended up in critical condition. The last one that Melissa and I had, he literally was in the hospital with a trach on because they thought he was going to die from pneumonia. You know what? No one had done an HIV test in a whole year. A whole year.
That wasn't even a thought. It wasn't even a thought, because they probably had the stigma set up in their mind that these men, I doubt that's what they got. Oh, my goodness.
And here's what happened with him is that as soon as he got the HIV test and there was a doctor brought in that knew what they were doing, he got put on HIV medicine. Within a week's time, he was able to eat on his own, and he was out of the hospital within less than a month. And in fact, I think it was actually more like 2 weeks, but I'll give it, the whole month.
Had been in the hospital with a trach. One of the guys, a little young guy, he had thrush. Thrush is a fungal disease that babies get from like when they have the bowel not too long. But on a person who has a compromised immune system, thrush would kill you because it'll go down your throat and close up your esophagus. This young 23-year-old boy had an out of control case of thrush, but they hadn't tested him for HIV. And again, within a couple of weeks after taking these medications, you're back fine.
Wow.
But all this could have been avoided if we made standardized HIV testing. When you go to the emergency room, when you go to your doctor, but we put so much of a burden on, oh my God, you can't possibly want to test for that. Then you end up having people having thousands of dollars in hospital bills, which they did not have to have.
Exactly.
They should have automatic testing.
In talking with females, we hear this all the time. We have a state testing form that we kind of go through that we fill out as they're, when somebody's getting tested. And there's some questions on there. And one of the things that we always ask before we even get to that is, have you ever had an HIV test before? And 9 times out of 10, if a female has been to a gynecologist, they will say, oh yeah, I've been to the gynecologist and I told them to test me for everything, and they did. And I'll say, right now, they did not test you for HIV. That is not everything. That is not on that list. And when you go to the doctor and you ask to be tested for everything, you need to ask them for a list of what you're being tested for. And if there's something that's not on that list, add it to it. Tell them you want an HIV test, because it will not be on the list of everything. It won't be there.
So it's just really a wholesale misconception and stigma going on about it. I mean, even with because I know I told you once before, I used to live where I'm from, Hobson City, and I used to live down there. And I know when they built the homes across from the AIDS clinic, it was already stigma went on about that. Oh, everybody living in them houses gonna have AIDS and this and that. And then I know y'all wanted to address this, the word full blown. I'm gonna give you an opportunity to address that. But in our community, we do have all of these stigmas, and I'm gonna tell you what's even worse. It lets me know the reason why it still is a problem, because we have a simple-minded, very simple mindset in our community when it comes to things like that, like even going to get tested. But then I've heard people, and this is in the 90s, I've heard men just in the group, you know how the fellas get around and talk, that said that if they got it, they would pass it intentionally. And that was like, oh man, when I heard that come out of somebody's mouth with my own ears, I was like, is this person human? Did he really just say that? And then the reason why they said they would do it would be because they mad. Well, wait a minute, what about your accountability? You know, I mean, so it's just like, I think about that mindset, and then I know, okay, that's why we still have a major problem. And then you take into account, even when you get into the medical field at the hospitals, like you said, you have to ask for the HIV test. So you mean to tell me I might be going through all these illnesses coming back and forth to the emergency room, but y'all won't test me for everything possible? Ooh, that's hard, man. But tell me about that, the full blown, the thing with full blown, because that's something that people need to understand too.
So here's the thing, and I'm gonna give it to you in a way that you can relate to right now. So everybody know what the coronavirus is, because the coronavirus causes COVID-19. People use those interchangeably, and they are not the same thing. HIV is the virus that causes AIDS. So you get HIV, and it develops into AIDS. AIDS is a diagnosis. It is not a disease.
There's not a test for it either.
Right. There's not a test for it. You can only test for HIV. But AIDS defined is someone who has an HIV infection, who have a viral load, above, who has a viral load period, and a CD4 count below 200. So your CD4 cells are the ones that help your body fight against infection. But once your CD4 count goes below 200 and you get what they call an opportunistic infection, you have an AIDS diagnosis. Here's the thing about AIDS. You don't always have to have an AIDS diagnosis, because once your CD4 count goes back above 200, then you no longer qualify for an AIDS diagnosis. You just got HIV. So the whole term full-blown AIDS is offensive to me, because, like, what does that really mean?
It makes it sound like ain't no turning back.
There's no turning back, and there is turning back. Now, at one point, there was not, but there is a turning around point now. Yeah, we all remember that. Yeah. You know, so that's my take on that. Melissa, what you got?
Well, I think too, you know, talking about that COVID comparison, it's almost like, you know, people want to say full-blown AIDS, but when you know, back when people were actually passing away because of age-related illnesses, that's exactly what it was. It was an age-related illness, and we're kind of doing the same thing with COVID right now. Especially, you know, certain people out there that want to say, oh, well, you know, the COVID numbers aren't actually what they are. You know, this person had a heart condition before they got COVID. Okay, but the COVID exacerbated the heart condition. So actually it was caused by so there's a real correlation there. Like Tony was talking about, nobody dies of AIDS. It is an infection, an opportunistic infection that comes about because the immune system is suppressed. Right. And it can't fight off something, you know, that it normally can. So that's where a lot of that misconception is too. And I'm going to tell you one of my biggest pet peeves, and I really have to take a step back and have a conversation with myself when people come up and say, I want to get one of them AIDS tests. And I have to say, okay, well, first of all, we don't test for AIDS. And I have to remind myself that people really still don't get it. And I have to, you know, again, that little conversation with myself, calm down, explain it to them, because this is where the education is so important.
Yeah. And then, you know, society we generalize too much. Like I said, we like convenience so much to where we'll just use the closest word possible. I'm bad with that. I mean, they got a radio show that they do every morning on here. And I swear, if I could write it down, it would be perfect. But when I'm speaking it, I sound like the prison guy on In Living Color, man. I'll be wanting to say consume and say conserve. I want to say valuable and say soluble, anything similar. So, I mean, you know, we like the convenience, and we don't really have our minds clicking just right to really express or receive the information the way we should, especially relaying it. And I think that might be the biggest problem, is relaying it the correct way. Because somebody else takes that information the way you said it, and they're going to repeat it the exact way that they took it. The AIDS test, like you said, the full blown. When really and truly it's been explained from the very beginning what it means. The weakened immune system allows a cancer or whatever, the kidney infection disease, that didn't allow that to happen and get worse. But over time, we saw these pictures and heard these words in the media, and things just went downhill.
Let me say this. I'm very transparent. Like some of my friends call me the invisible man. I'm so transparent because it's what I am is what I am and what I am. The thing that bothers me is the misconception about HIV as a deadly disease. So like I told you, I've lived with HIV for over 20 years, right? I was diagnosed with colorectal cancer in 2014. And let me just tell you this, if I was perfectly healthy with nothing wrong with me, if we go back to the Matrix where Neil had the blue pill and the red pill, he said the blue pill gives you cancer and the red pill gives you HIV. Guess which pill I'm going to take? The red pill. Because HIV is manageable with one pill a day, whereas cancer is an evil beast that you have to kill. If not, it kills you. Now, HIV will kill you too if you don't treat it. But I'd rather have one pill a day than have to do chemo, radiation, a whole bunch of other stuff that I don't want to do. But when you say that to people, when I tell people that I have HIV, they're like, oh, okay. If I tell them I had cancer, like, oh, and like,
yep.
Now I can use some really choice words, but it sounds like just a Christian station, so I'm not going to. But I be thinking some really rough stuff about them because I'm like, why the difference? Why the difference? They're both diseases, but people feel like if you get HIV, then you somehow deserve it. Whereas we watch people smoke 5 packs of cigarettes a day and have lung cancer, all of a sudden we got to be sorry for them. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't be. We should be compassionate to everybody. But, people saying that, this is their fault. We hear when we talk about substance abuse, like we try to get needle exchange programs. We have people right now in the Alabama House who I have heard say, well, just let them die. But these are the good Christian folks of the red state of Alabama.
Yeah. And we want, again, it's like Tony said before, we've got to find a villain, and to vilify what these people have done, their actions, they deserve it because, they somehow were addicted to something or, whatever the route of transmission was, we vilify it. Sex has been vilified for hundreds of years in this country, and here we are, and we've got to find something to blame it on so that, the good people don't feel so bad or threatened. They don't feel as threatened. That's another thing is, yeah.
Well, I think the general public too also needs to get, because it probably would help with a lot of media. I'm pretty sure if somebody was to make a movie right now where they were getting their results and they tested as positive, they would probably have that person portrayed like they got a death sentence, because you still hear that he got a death sentence. He got a death sentence. Maybe if it was portrayed the way it actually should be portrayed, because I was going to ask you, when you first got the news, how did you receive it, knowing now that you could fight it better? Did you actually get into a depression, or did you just look at it like, okay, now I got to start taking medicine to make sure I got it under control? Because I know if this was in 1990 and you heard that, then you probably would actually just probably go into depression and send yourself downhill health wise. But how did you receive that, knowing now that you could handle it better?
So I don't think I'm wired for depression or for depression very long. So like, I don't know what that really feels like. I'm a person that when I have a problem, I try to figure out how to solve it. And I was diagnosed in the 90s and my friends were all dying. Like literally I had people who could be built like football players. They found out they had this disease and 4 months later they're dead. And it's like, just knowing you have this disease shouldn't kill you. So when I got my diagnosis, I was like, oh shit. I'm sorry. Oh crap.
You're on the Christian station.
In 4 months, I'm gonna be dead. And I was like, the guy gave me the news. He was like, listen, you can go here for help if you want to, but you need to get your affairs in order because you're gonna die. I was a 26-year-old kid. You told a 26-year-old kid to get ready to die. So I did go into a really weird state. And what I decided that I was gonna do was I was just gonna catch a cold like my friends were doing when winter came, and I was gonna die. So I literally sat there waiting on death to come for about 7-8 years. And although you couldn't tell by looking at me, HIV was doing its work in my body, making me weaker. But by the time I got on my medications, I was on 1 pill a day. Everything just kind of like bounced back. But back then that HIV was a death sentence. It was something you should really be fearful of. But there are still people dying from HIV today, and there's no reason for anyone to die from HIV today. Even if you don't have insurance, we will make sure that you get your meds. We will make sure that you see a doctor. We provide housing. We provide mental health services, substance abuse counseling, whatever you need to get on the right track. We will help you do that. But we still got people dying. We got people dying because of stigma, because they know that they tell somebody they're gonna get judged. You generalization, but generalization and judging is the worst thing that we do to each other.
Yep. So what you're really saying is, number one, understanding that it's not a death sentence, and one of the things people need to understand today, they need to get that 30-year-old, 35-year-old mindset out the way. Rock Hudson, that doesn't have to happen anymore. And the second thing is that they need to understand that heterosexuals can take this pill too. They could go and get the PrEP and get this stuff too. And now, is it 100%?
No medicine is what. Oh, I'm sorry. I had to plug my computer back up. No medicine is 100%. But in the studies that they have, let me just tell you this: the people who took the medicine the way they were supposed to did not contract HIV. So when you do like a research study, you have to count everybody in the study. So there are 100 people in the study, and 4 people decide they're not going to take the medications right, and they contract HIV. You still have to count those people in the studies. So most studies say that PrEP is 96% effective, but that's because 4 people in the study decided they didn't want to take the medicines the right way. Right. So I won't say 100%, but if you take it, you'll be protected. But you got to take it every day.
Right. That's mainly the thing I want to make sure, because some people might find out, and that stigma might go out the window. They feel like this is just some magic pill, and they go out here and just be free willy again, like we was in the early 80s before everything got bad.
Let me say this. I don't mind people being free willy, and let me tell you why. We're of a certain age, and I remember when they were trying to get the birth control approved for common use. Like, there were a lot of people like, well, we don't want to get these women these birth control pills. Can we give them these pills? They're gonna go out here and have all this wild sex. My thing is, let them have sex without having a baby they can't take care of. Like, why are you worried about their uterus? Like,
absolutely, amen.
Let them do what they need to do without catching something else. And the same thing is true about HIV. Well, we don't want them gay people having sex. We don't want the bisexual. Yeah, let them people do what they need to do, but don't let them not catch another disease in the process. You don't have to die from having sex. You don't have to have a baby from having sex. Those are things that we don't think about congruently, but you don't have to have a baby, and you don't have to get a disease. There are medical interventions that will prevent those. The birth control pill and PrEP, and people need to understand that.
Just be responsible.
All the time. I don't care what you do, as long as you're safe doing it, and let me know what you need to be safe doing it. What you're doing is not my business. What I want is for you to understand that there are options out there to keep you safe, or prevent infection, the ultimate STI, whatever. It's just, I want you to be safe doing it. It's not my business what you do. Just be safe.
Right. But the PrEP is not in a free pass to go out there and live a risky lifestyle. All right.
I say do what you need to do. You're living a risky lifestyle anyway. Go ahead and protect yourself. Here's the thing: PrEP doesn't change people's behaviors about sex. Like, people think that just because I take this pill that I'm gonna go out there and have risky sex. If you're having risky sex, you're gonna have risky sex with or without PrEP. And that's the thing that I want people to understand. I'm not telling you, okay, you shouldn't have 7 sex partners in one night. But if that's your thing, you can do that and not catch HIV as punishment for that. But that's where this religiosity comes in, where you shouldn't have sex with a whole married. Okay, well, no one I know of has held close to that rule. So not let them catch HIV or have a baby. I don't see the problem with that. But I'm not saying that people should go out and just go out there willy-nilly, but the people out there willy-nilly, they already willy-nilly. Let them be willy-nilly without catching something.
And most of the, like Tony's organization and the agency I work for started a prep clinic about the same time. And most, reputable prep clinics or clinics are going to educate the people that are coming in to be put on prep. We're going to tell them, no, look, this protects you against HIV infection, not against any other STIs. We do STI testing along with, every time they come out for a doctor's appointment. So you can't just pass out the pill like candy and not give them knowledge. You have to give them the education, the knowledge that they need to, again, make the best choice for themselves. And then if they go on and do it, they're human beings that have control over their own lives. And there's nothing we can do except for bring them in, treat them, and continue to educate. Now, remember, this does not, we may have to say remember a million times over. One day they'll get it. One day. But if they don't, that's their life. It's their life.
Right. Good deal. I'm going to ask everybody once again, if you want to call in and ask the specialists a question, the professionals, that you can call in at 678-381-1973. That's 678-381-1973.
Somebody probably sitting there with a question that they want to ask but don't want to ask because they're afraid what people are going to say about asking the question. Exactly. That's how bad.
Exactly.
Right.
Really.
I'm going to be honest with you. Speaking from the point of view of, I'm going to say like the maybe 21, 22-year-old me, if I was 19 or 20 years old right now at this point in time, and I heard this conversation, the simple-minded me would probably think that I could go out here and get this pill and still sleep with women and feel comfortable because I didn't like wearing condoms. Now, the older me knows better, but I just know some of these young guys, they're thinking like that. Some of the heterosexuals and homosexuals, they're thinking that with this pill, they could take this and now they can have the natural way, the way they want to, and think that it's a get out of jail free card, forgetting about gonorrhea.
You get syphilis, and then you got
forget all about that. They'll forget all about that. So, that's why I was saying that it would still have to be very well understood and explained correctly.
But the good thing is that we can get rid of everything else.
Right, and there's an open door there, though. If let's say they do think that, but they still want to get on prep, they're going to come to that clinic. And guess what? We're going to educate them. So let them think that. That's a great kind of way in the door for us to start that really interactive conversation with somebody that may feel that way. Absolutely. Yep. Hey, I say bring it on. If that's the way you feel, come to the clinic, come to the prep clinic. We'll get you tested for STIs and we'll get you tested, for HIV, and then we'll put you on prep. And then we're going to give you some hardcore information that you can take out of there and make the best decision for yourself on how to keep yourself from not contracting an STI. Absolutely.
So, I'm about to lose thought about what I was going to ask you just a second ago. But I was going to ask, are the numbers pretty good? Like compared to the community, the population, do people actually come in the way they should? Are the numbers low for people that's coming in and getting tested?
That's a hard question to answer.
No,
really.
No, it's not. Is it? It's low. No, it's low. It's low.
It's low.
Well, yeah, it is low.
If you're listening to this and you having sex, whether you're married or not, you need to get an HIV test.
Absolutely.
The problem is people think just because I'm married, I don't need to do one.
Right.
And if I get it, I'm like, well, you know what? You don't know unless you get tested.
Yeah.
So like the numbers are extremely low. Like everybody needs to have a HIV test at least annually, even if you're not having sex. If you're having sex quite frequently, every 3 months, you're having sex really, really frequently with a bunch of different people, I say after every 2 or 3 people. But I mean, it's like we don't want to do that because we're afraid of what people are going to think about you. Right. You can come see me right now. I don't care. I will meet you at the parking lot. I will meet you at your house. I will meet you at the library. I will meet you in your office even on the weekends to make sure you get this test. But, we got to stop shaming people for wanting to take care of themselves. And that's gonna always push back on this whole like slut shaming thing. We done did what we done did. 21-year-old you, 53-year-old me, we done did what we done. So it is what it is, and find a way to make sure that people can stay healthy. I can't judge you for what you've done. And you can judge me if you want to. I don't care. But I mean, we need to stop doing that. We're so judgmental about every little thing. When you turn that mirror back on yourself, you're no better.
Worried about image too. Worried about image too, because I know as long as I've been down in Hobson City, I should have been through there and got me a test quite a few times. I don't know what that place looked like on the inside because I was too worried. I was too worried about, and I ain't gonna even lie. I know it was plenty of times I thought to myself, if I went over there, boy, these folks gonna think I got AIDS. They gonna think and so I know it's plenty of others. Probably if I was around 100 people, 99 of them probably said the same.
Yeah, you're just man enough to admit it. You're just man enough to admit it. They're in it. Most of the people who are gonna watch this have not had an HIV test recently. Right. And they haven't had it for that reason. Either one, they don't want people to think that they have it, or two, they don't think that they can get it. Like, I cannot tell you how many people I've told they have HIV. How did I get it? Sex. That's how you get it.
You didn't get it from Santa Razor. You didn't get it from a fight you had back in the 10th grade, a fist fight. You didn't get it from all those other
right.
women. You got it. Let's be real.
And then I go, well, I'm married. Marriage is not a pre-exposure prophylaxis. Like, it's a legal agreement. It does not protect you from anything at all.
I'll tell you this, we have come a long way with testing also. I know for us and Tony as well, we offer, we offer 3 different types of HIV tests. One of them is like, once you get your finger pricked and we do the whole little thing, it takes 1 minute to get the result. We have one that's just a mouth swab that takes 20 minutes for a result. We have another one that's a finger stick and it's a 20-minute result. We have, if somebody comes in and they're terrified of getting their finger stuck, they don't like to stick blood or whatever, I'm not going to try to talk them into this, that, or the other. I'm going to give them what they're comfortable with just so that they get tested. We have the resources to make people comfortable in that testing situation. Right. And we have to use it.
Mm-hmm. And we can get you. Well, I'm pretty sure. Melissa, y'all probably can do this too. But even if you don't have insurance, my clinic will get you on PrEP.
Absolutely,
you don't necessarily have to have insurance to be on PrEP, and it's at zero cost to you. Yes. So, like, there's no reason for people not to be getting on PrEP right now. Absolutely. It's the fact that they're ashamed of what people are gonna think about them, or some of the stuff that they said about other people. I find the people who do worse with the HIV diagnosis are the people who talk about other people who had HIV. Like, if you want those people around that time, he got that stuff and he got the AIDS. When you find out you got it, all that hate, all that anger is now reflected back on you from yourself. And it makes it real hard to deal with stuff.
Yep, I can believe that. So now I can understand, like, with me understanding now that, because I didn't know that y'all did all the testing for other sexually transmitted diseases too, infections. I thought it was just for HIV infection. But now with me knowing that y'all do all of the testing, really, y'all should have swinging doors. It should be swinging doors. I mean, it should be just as many people there as at the health department in any city. But most cities that I've been in, I can honestly say that you don't see many people there unless they are, going for treatment. But the stigma is, because like I said, I believe if I went in now, the biggest problem I would have had was somebody thinking I was going to get me some medication. And if I was going to get that medication, man, there's gonna be 1,000 reasons why I got it, and so that's the hang up with in our community, especially in the Black community, and sitting right, she's sitting right in the heart of the Black community. I mean, it's blacker than black down now, so the people down in Hobson City, man, she probably ain't got a patient from Hobson City coming in now, unless they come to pick up the meal or something,
But we love our community. We love it. I mean, we've never. We've had a long history here in Hobson City. I don't know if you remember that the previous site that we had here was burned by arsonists, and that was in the early 90s. And so the doctor that we have literally was like, she's giving everybody the middle finger, saying, "I'll build it back and I'll build it better." And by God, she did. And here we are, still yet again, 20 plus years later, after the initial clinic was burned to the ground by people that just didn't understand it, didn't care, didn't want it. But yeah, and we've, since then, we have some issues. And like you were talking about, our housing that we have that people wanted to talk about and whatever, it's just one of those things that We're here. We proved ourselves, and nobody thinks twice about it anymore. Or if they do, they don't make it a big issue. I'm sure you know.
You said something then, because I can remember when they was trying to get the clinic down there, and there was people up in arms about getting that clinic. They didn't care who it was going to help. They just didn't want the AIDS people coming down there in Hobson City. I guess they just thought it was just going to be streets filled with people looking like Rock Hudson walking up and down the street. And I'm like, man, come on. What is really going on? People need health care. But they really
let me say this though. I gotta get ready to go in a minute. But for people who are listening, if you're anywhere in the state and can make it to Birmingham or to Anderson, give us a call. You can look us up, AIDS Alabama online. Shoot, my phone number is 205-422-9855. That's my cell. Text me, call me. My whole thing is making sure that people get taken care of. So
you can Google HIV clinics, HIV testing, and all of the places in the state will pop up. Tony's agency will pop up. Our agency will pop up. Depending on where you are, you can type in, HIV testing near me, PrEP clinics near me. All of our agencies will come up, and it'll usually come up in, like what you're closest to. But absolutely, you can call. We can get you taken care of. There's no links that we won't go to. We all have websites, but sometimes calling, you get a little bit more information. You get that personal, touch there, and are able to talk to somebody, and we can, talk through what you need and when's going to be the best time to meet you. And again, we will meet you where you are. And that has been from the day that I walked in here. When I did my orientation for this agency, that is exactly what I was told. We meet people where they are. Period. The end.
Well, I'm gonna get ready to end it in a few minutes, but this is a broadcast that goes over 58 countries and nationwide, and I was wondering, are your organizations affiliated through a nationwide network, or is this just the state of Alabama?
Most of the work is local or regional. Like there are some national organizations that we all are part of, like maybe MAC and things like that. But most of it is regional and local in the work that we do. The federal agencies handle most of the statewide. Most of the nationwide things. But we have several conferences that we haven't been able to go to this year because of COVID-19. That we all go to and exchange ideas. But we have partners in just about every state in the Southeast, doing this type of work. So we share resources with each other. We share knowledge with each other. And sometimes we even have to help each other's patients out. You got a client that moves to Atlanta, they're going to need some help navigating that system.
Right. So that's good. They got a connection, a network like that. That way, if you move from one place to another, they're pretty much affiliated.
And look, we had a kid a while back, a year or so ago, that was a student at a university in Atlanta, and he didn't feel comfortable going to the doctor in Atlanta. And somebody that he was related to contacted me and said, hey, Anniston's about an hour and a half drive, about an hour from where he is. Could he come to the doctor there? We made it work because he needed somewhere to feel safe. He needed somewhere to feel comfortable, that he could walk in and get what he needed for his HIV treatment. We made it work. So call us. We can figure something out. And if we can't do it ourselves, our connections across the state and even throughout the Southeast and the country, we can figure it out. We can help you get there.
See, now that's huge that you said that, because that might even encourage somebody to come from another city and get tested.
Absolutely.
They don't have to worry about the people in that neighborhoods watching them going in that clinic, knowing who they are. They may come from Gadsden, they may come from Atlanta, they may come from Columbus, Georgia, somewhere, just to come to that clinic, get some testing or get some treatment. So that's awesome that you made that point, because a lot of people, that may encourage them to go ahead and get healthy, find out and get the results and find out what's going on. But I'm getting ready to leave out. Yeah, they got about to be 6 o'clock and they got another show coming up after mine. I want to thank y'all for coming in and doing this show with me, because like I said, this is so important, very important, not just in the Black community, nationwide, but if we listen to the media, it's very important in the Black community majorly. So I'm glad y'all came on. I'm glad I had specialists on that can help me spread this information. So now I don't have to run around here talking like a bootleg specialist. And I want to thank everybody else out there in DKL Media World for tuning in. Engineer back in the next room. I hope he's paying attention, but we good to go. We out of here.
Thank you. We appreciate it. We appreciate it.
Hopefully, I think I might want to try to do another show. Hopefully, if I invite y'all again, y'all come on and I'll give you a call. I appreciate it, man. And we linked in on Facebook. I'll be keeping in touch. I appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.